Let's get to Lord Byron. Let's get back to the funny stuff. And I realized the other day that when we got done with, we had talked about Byron, but one of my favorite quotes when we were talking about how he says nothing, we didn't actually get to. And it's the best. Like, how far did we get? Let me see. I mean, we kind of jumped around, which is probably the best way to talk about Byron anyway. Oh, we need to get to them. We need to get to them. We haven't really even got to.
No, we just talked about his mom.
Yeah, we talked about the mom in the background and like how he thinks he's saying something important. Can't even really point out what he learned at college. Perfect. It was amazing stuff. Help thinking puberty assisted. Let me see. I'm going to try to find the best place to start here. Where is the... Hey, can you find for me, Jeff? Will you control F for me and find sunburnt? I need to know what stanza. S-U-N-B-U-R-N-T. You need to look up the website first. Is that what happened? Yeah. I thought I saw you control F-ing and going, oh crap, how do you spell sunburnt?
I don't remember it. No, it's not. It wouldn't help anyway. It's not telling me the stanza lines anyway. It's 69.
69 is a stanza?
And it's,
oh wow. Oh, he hyphened it.
Yeah.
He put sun-burnt instead of sunburnt.
It's not telling me the stanza numbers anyway on this website.
Oh, you don't have to or line numbers? Oh my gosh.
I'm screwed on this.
Yeah, you're kind of. So yeah, I like to start here. Well, really, I'm gonna jump around a couple of stanzas, I think, because we just did the 52. For my part, I will say nothing, but this I will say, because we talked about the college thing, and then he starts going kind of through the Juan and Julia relationship. Yeah. Oh yeah, we did the well knit, what he's like. Was in her eyes the most atrocious. So let's go to the very next stanza, stanza 55, which starts with amongst. Amongst, stanza 55. On my book, it's page 1745. Because we talked about how hilarious was that he thinks that it's very important to learn. Literally, I was thinking about this the other day when I was watching the video clip, because I was trying to remove the bad word. And I was watching the clip again, and I was actually very embarrassed watching myself reread that stanza, because I realized how stupid I looked because I had forgotten exactly what that stanza's purpose was, and I was trying to figure out what the heck is going on, and that was why I was getting so annoyed. And then when I went back and watched the video, I went, oh, that's another hilarious part of it that I had forgotten, where when he says verbum sat, that Latin bit in that stanza 53, it's sort of meant to be like he remembered like one word real quick from Latin, like a phrase, and acted like
he actually remembers.
Yeah, it's like because college is where you learn, and he says with the Latin stuff and verbum sat, like if somebody like asked you like about Spanish and you were like, oh yeah, Spanish, high school is important because I learned Spanish, and like. Mi casa, su casa, with the como se llama, and he's just saying like a phrase he knows real quick to act like he learned something, which I thought was really funny when I listened to myself fumble over it. So 54. We already talked about how he was a slender boy and how he's great, and we don't want him to be too wise before his age, but then in stanza 55, we finally start learning about Julia. And it says, amongst her numerous acquaintance, talking about Donna Inez, his mom, all selected for discretion and devotion, there was Donna Julia, whom to call pretty were to but give a feeble notion of many charms in her, as natural as sweetness to the flower or salt to the ocean. Her zone to Venus, or his bow to Cupid. But this last simile is trite and stupid. I love this about this he's just so great. Like he realizes it's something he says is dumb, like the bow to Cupid, and he's like, it's trite and stupid. Never, forget that. I love the ability to correct in a narrator. It's just so not normal. Really, I think if we talk about who is the true like what is the true innovation that Byron came up with, it was this not the hero that might have not done anything, but just this narrator that seems to have a true personality, despite, at least in the Canto we see, not knowing who the guy truly is. Like, well, who is this guy? But he's got such a personality to him. And I don't think it's supposed to necessarily be Byron, but a lot of us, we think of like the Byronic narrator. We think of that's the guy. Is the guy who's like constantly correcting himself and being just really witty and funny. Have y'all known somebody like that too, who like they're not the narrator, but getting back to her, like somebody who's like kind of pretty, or like maybe I always consider like the girls in school who were like the high school girls who were like popular. Really, if you looked at them, like if you looked at a photo of them and somebody said to you, these are the popular people at this school, a lot of times you would go, really? You know, like you would say like they're popular? Like they don't seem that popular. Like they only seem like they're kind of pretty. You know, you always, I think you equate like popularity to people who are like the super popular people are like with the prettiest ones or like the most well-developed ones or like the wealthiest ones sometimes we think. But really people who become popular, it's like a combination of charms. Like they might be beautiful, but more importantly, they know how to like talk to people or get them to feel good about themselves, or that they want to make you feel good that they talk to you. You know, there's all kinds of like combinations of stuff that goes. It's more than just outside prettiness. In fact, if somebody is just outside pretty, I always think it's really. Does anybody watch Big Brother? There's Jeff.
Shows.
Huh? You watch Big Brother, Casey? It's a brilliant show. What? I think they're actually not renewing that one.
They're not doing a celebrity this.
I thought at first they had a date, but now I can't find it anywhere.
I think because they maybe have thought that it. I think that a lot of times that people who watch Big Brother in the off season will watch Survivor sometimes, and rather than watching Survivor when they did the Celebrity Big Brother, people were choosing to watch Celebrity Big Brother, and they would get lost in it, and then never be able to catch up with Survivor, so they never bothered. So I think they realized they weren't really getting a new audience so much as they were moving an old audience, and that just wasted their time.
Part of it is the Survivor this season is going to be like it's all the winners from the past 20 seasons.
Yeah, my wife, we haven't watched it in 6 or 7 seasons as per her request. She's like, I've been bored, but now she wants to watch all the old Survivor. Like, she's like, I want to see the winners. I was like, we don't even know like 4 or 5 people on there because they won the last 6 or 7 seasons. And she's like, I don't care, it's winners. And I was like, oh, honey, I love you, but you're killing me. You told me this 2 days ago.
You ever
Big Brother. Big Brother, I hear from people in the diary room and stuff. What, have I ever watched what? I've never watched Circle on Netflix, no.
No, actually, I haven't either.
Oh, okay.
I keep getting recommended that. I need to actually buckle down and watch that. Everyone keeps recommending that shit.
So what show are you asking me about?
Naked and Afraid. You watch that shit?
I couldn't do it.
I've seen
You
it.
could do it.
Huh?
Do you think you could do it?
No, I would get sunburnt I would get very quickly. Yeah.
Skin starts peeling?
Yeah, it'd be awful. So, okay, Big Brother. People have told me a number of times, like Kennedy just said, I only watch good shows. I do not like any reality television, none of it. But I still maintain to this day that Big Brother is an illuminating show for a couple of reasons. Survivor is okay. The thing about Survivor is it happens on an island, and while there are some of the elements of strategy that you see in Big Brother, it's not as pure an experiment. So what Big Brother does is it throws 16 people in a house. Eventually one of them wins $500,000. And I assumed, as you know, in life, I thought, well, the popular people or the people who have the most stuff, or those are going to be the ones who go all the way. But you forget about the meta game. Once you're in there and you think popular people are well liked, you instantly think to yourself, I got to get rid of the popular people. So the popular people go away usually fairly quickly, or if they're so popular, they kind of have to make themselves jerky. So if you act like a jerk, then people, Yeah, or sometimes they'll see them as a threat, so you have to make yourself seem like a jerk so that people go, oh, that person's a jerk. They're not as popular as I think they are, which is one of the things that Dr. Will always did so well. Dr. Will was like this brilliant guy. He's a doctor. He was a genius and convinced all these people to vote for him to win $500,000 because everybody else thought he was a jerk when everybody really thought that he was just brilliant. Genius, huh?
It's only $500,000.
Well, it used to be a lot of money. Now it's not so much anymore. I really wish they would up it to $1 million. So it's. But I mean, it would be great. But if you think about like the comparison to what it was 20 years ago when they started that amount of money, the portion of the house that would have been versus the portion of a house that would be now.
Did you hear how much they're doing for Survivor for this? The bank for Survivor for this season? It's $2 million. Yeah.
What would you do?
But I mean, that's how you get all the winners back. They want to be the first person to win that much money.
Snickles.
Yeah.
What would you do with $500,000 right now?
I would just pay off debts and pay off the house and maybe put money down in a new house. It would be very, very simple, practical living stuff. I wouldn't go and waste it or spend a lot of money on a lot of stuff. I would, however, get a house that had a dedicated VR space.
You wouldn't act like an NFL
Hopefully a house with a library. And I know Casey's already got plans for that stuff too. Because you don't watch Big Brother without thinking what you're going to do with that money. Like every time you watch it, you go, what would I do with that money? Okay. The reason I'm mentioning Big Brother here is like what happens every time is a lot of people have been pretty and popular their whole lives. And then they all get cast on Big Brother together. The people who are usually, they say like the people you should watch out for are the people who aren't pretty. Because they're there for a reason. If you see somebody who's kind of nerdy looking or kind of goofy looking, they did not cast that person because, oh, we just cast goofy looking people. Because they know people are going to be watching that show all summer long. So they can't just cast somebody goofy that you're not going to want to stare at on television. They cast pretty people for that. So they're like, this person must be really smart. So their people are thinking about that. But it's very awkward for some of these people when they get in there and they are used to being the prettiest, best personality person in any given room. And they get put in there with other people who are the same, who also have good personalities and also are the smart, like people in the room that are always looked at. And they don't know how to interact with each other. They always get very pissed and catty and like angry at each other. And like alpha males are like trying to like outweight each other. It's like crazy because they don't know what to do when they're around people that aren't like that can oust them, like they can be better than them at stuff. You talking about Rachel Riley?
I think so, the redhead?
I think that she was one of the most annoying people.
No, she was, but she got thrown in there and she just was like, I am the best out of everybody here. She was crazy.
Yeah, but she was crazy. I think she was cast because she was crazy, and I don't know if she knew that, but she is a jewel of casting. Like she was a miracle.
I don't remember, it was 2 or 3 seasons ago that the Paul, Paul.
Yeah, poor guy.
Friendship, yay!
But I liked him, man.
I loved Paul. He was great, but he was such a
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry about that. You should just go and start watching it.
You ever watch The Ultimate Fighter?
No.
yes.
Now that is an excellent reality show, sir.
That's pretty good.
What I like about Big Brother and the reason I think it's brilliant is because it really does, because you can watch it 24/7. You can actually get live feeds and watch them in the house 24/7 and see what they're up to. But you can see their strategies play out live and see the ways that they backstab each other and come up with these crazy social chess moves. And it's just, there's something like, I feel like it's the last thing that AI won't be able to figure out. Like it's going to take forever for AI to figure out how to play a social game, you know? I mean, right now we got AIs becoming truck drivers and getting rid of lawnmowers.
Have you seen Person of Interest
On
Netflix?
I have seen that, yeah.
Okay, that's gonna say you
Is it
haven't
the
even
AI
watched it.
that like finds people that are in trouble or whatever?
Yeah, I saw the other day there's a bricklaying robot that's come out. Like there's now a robot that will lay bricks. My brother, he does miniature sculptures for a living, and I don't really want to tell him this. So here we go. Basically, she's got so many charms that it's not just her beauty that attracts people. It's how sweet she is and how nice she is and like how like smart she is on top of everything else. And I'm gonna skip past stanza 56. And it says, and in 57 it says, she married, I forget the pedigree, with an hidalgo who transmitted down his blood less noble than such blood should be. So he's like this is a kind of caste type system where you have people who are considered better in society than others because they're like of a duke family or like a duchess family, and he's a Don family. So it's Don Hidalgo, so the fact that he was willing to marry down the bloodlines that far just to marry her was considered to be like a concession. So, I mean, it's got to be tough to live in a society where you have to marry based on how good the people are considered, like what rank, class rank in society, rather than love out of choice, you know? And so it says that such alliances his sires would frown in that point so precise in each degree that they bred in and in, as might be shown, marrying their cousins, nay, their aunts and nieces, which always spoils the breed if it increases. So those were people that usually were so afraid of getting their bloodlines messed up that they would just marry each other. I think we talked about this last time, didn't we? With like Game of Thrones?
Yeah. So this is ancient Egypt.
Where they would kind of do this. Like, yeah, they would just do that to keep the bloodlines pure.
Show goes hard though, or did.
Yeah, it was pretty good for a while. Let's see. Let me see. Next down. Let me see. I'm trying to probably skip the next one.
I just wish it would've went a couple more episodes.
No, absolutely.
Okay, so it says, yeah, basically in 59, all we really get is that she's married, charming, chaste, and 23. And then 60. Stanza 60, which is line 473. Her eye, I'm very fond of handsome eyes, was large and dark, suppressing half its fire until she spoke. Then through its soft disguise flashed an expression more of pride than ire, and love than either. And there would arise a something in them which was not desire, but which would have been perhaps but for the soul which struggled through and chastened down the whole. Her glossy hair was clustered. Wait, I think oh, yeah. Her glossy hair was clustered o'er a brow, bright with intelligence and fair and smooth. Her eyebrow's shape was like the aerial bow. Her cheek all purple with the beam of youth, mounting at times to a transparent glow as if her veins ran lightning. She, in sooth, possessed an air and grace by no means common, her stature tall. I hate a dumpy woman. That's terrible. Terrible speaker. And then we finally get, so that's like how she looks and what she's like, and then we get down to 62. Wedded she was some years, and to a man of 50, and such husbands are in plenty. So she's 23, he's 50. Anybody been in a relationship quite as year difference as that? That's quite a year difference, isn't it? And yet I think instead of such a 1, 'twere better to have 2 of 5 and 20, which I think is pretty clever. The speaker here is saying, rather than have one 50-year-old husband, why not just have 2 25-year-old ones? Sounds more fun. Let me show you to a show called Sister Wives, my sir. It'd be more like brother husbands, though, wouldn't it? Yeah. And he says, especially in countries near the sun, and now I think on it, me vien en mente. Oh, I kind of know, like, the life of what? It comes to mind. I was totally off. Ladies, even of the most uneasy virtue, prefer a spouse whose age is short of 30. I would think, I mean, is anybody here, like in the room, like you, when you're thinking about the guy that you want to be with, the first thoughts of him, or, I mean, I guess guys too, well, I think it's specifically talking about the way men look, I think here, as opposed to women. I think women hold their beauty a little longer. Men become like this, get this wizened look, where the wrinkles are sort of part of it. But still, even then, knowing that guys will turn into like Sean Connery or Harrison Ford, don't you still think when you're thinking of who do I want to marry, you're not thinking of the older people. You're thinking of them like kind of before 30-ish, aren't you?
What?
When you're considering like somebody that you might get in a relationship with, yeah, I'm really not talking to the guy. I'm not talking to people who are into females. That does not work right now. People who are into males. That's specifically the only ones, because he's talking about males specifically and the difference in the way that they are in their stature. But yeah, so it's being clear, you can't. It doesn't apply to everybody. Says ladies, even of the most uneasy virtue, so women who aren't even that virtuous would prefer a spouse whose age is short of 30. Even women who would marry just for money would still prefer to marry short of 30. You know, like if you're marrying just for money, I mean, imagine marrying a 70-year-old dude. That's just, you know, it's like not so great. Even 50.
Money faster.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, true. This did happen in Chaucer's Canterbury Tales of the Wife of Bath. But,
Good thing I'm not into
Would you marry Oprah for her money?
huh?
Would you marry Oprah for her money?
I would never marry anybody for money.
Really?
So you're telling
No.
me
Really?
Huh?
Yeah, I absolutely would. I'd do anything she asked.
I think it's hilarious that doesn't Tom Brady like is only close to making as much money as his wife because she's like a rich model.
Not anymore.
Oh, he's finally doing it.
Yeah.
Yay!
Thank God. The one year that he finally doesn't make it to the Super Bowl, he's like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore.
Well, he's like at the beginning of the end.
Well, his contract with Patriots is also.
I wonder if he'll get in the Hall of Fame. I've always wondered that. You know, if he'll make it. Just kidding. he's got enough rings to cover a hand and like a little more, doesn't he?
I don't even know the rules of the game, and I know who he is. He's definitely making it into the Hall
Yeah,
of Fame.
like he's probably going to be the only person to ever retire and the next year be instantly put into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, like literally he will be. They won't even think about it. So, she's married to a dude of 50. She's 23. And probably, even if she were trying to marry just for money or status, she'd still prefer some guy shorter than, like, less than 30. Nobody says, like, oh, you know, I really hope to marry a nice 50-year-old man someday. It's just not something that happens. Can't wait to marry somebody's grandma. It's not a, you know, it's not your first thought. Yeah.
It might be your first thought. We don't
Maybe
know.
the bonus they've lost a tooth, you know. And this is back in the day before like dentistry and those sorts of things. So you get a little older, a little faster.
Hey, don't be ashamed, just 'cause
so-
it's King's saying.
And he said too that whole sunburnt thing, and that's coming up. Because he says, especially in countries near the sun, he's making a point of like in youth, like when it's very sunny there and there's not a whole lot of shade and so people spend a lot of time in the sun. And you've got like the skin complexion that, I mean, really like white people at that time, I think, mostly just burned, you know, because we weren't near places that were sunny by default. It is sort of like a representation of like, what do you call it? Genetics over time under stressors. So it's like it was a response to being in snow landscapes, wasn't it? For the most part, the genetics just sort of responded to like not needing to have a lot of melanin because there wasn't a whole lot of, you know, sun. And then so was the mix of that and like more Hispanic toned and like Arabian toned nations, Middle Eastern toned nations. So the sun hits and you actually will tan. So like the skin can turn a lot of different tones over the course of that. But I would say like white people and black people, the tones don't change a lot much in the sun. There's burning, there's the same tone. Like it's meant to be characteristically made to be like protected against the sun and not really made for the sun at all versus the ones in the middle where it's like your skin adapts to the sun so it can protect itself when it needs to and then lays off a bit when it doesn't need to. Is I think kind of what he's talking about here with the sunburnt nations. Or like people being characteristically close to the sun, yes.
This is based off in Spain, I think Cadiz, which is
Yes.
fine. So
Yeah.
Isn't that just Texas, but over in Europe? Because I mean, like they're basically same environment, except they have more mountains.
True, but when I even saying native Texans, none of us are.
No.
Like,
I assume that they're native.
they're going to be native to Spain, so yeah. Granted, there is like that. They're going to be a little paler than say like people like in South America, like the people who are like what. It's funny when I get on Ancestry, it says that I have 0 like Native American in me, and like if you're Hispanic, it says like you have like 50 to like 60% Native American because it's like talking about like native to the Americas, but not quite as dark as somebody from like say South America, but. Spain is going to be, it does have that complexion that like will get kind of more of a golden tone, and I think that's kind of what his point is. And so he says down here, and I'm going to skip down to like the last 10 lines here. Yeah, the last lines of 63, he kind of talks about people, but he says what men call gallantry and God's adultery is much more common where the climate's sultry. Because the sun just makes you look pretty, I guess. And then I'm going to skip down to 65. line 513. It's on page 1748. Starts with the word Alfonso. Alfonso was the name of Julia's lord, a man well looking for his years, and who was neither much beloved nor yet abhorred. They lived together as most people do, suffering each other's foibles by accord, and not exactly either one or two. Yet he was jealous, though he did not show it, for jealousy dislikes the world to know it. Isn't that he sometimes comes up with those true statements. Isn't that true? Yet he was jealous, though he did not show it, for jealousy dislikes the world to know it. That is 100% true. If you're a jealous type person, the number one thing you want is to have nobody know that you're a jealous type of person. Like, people who are jealous will often say, I'm not jealous. I just want to make sure everything's fine. I love you. I want to be around you. That's it. That's all I care. And I always, like, my wife, I would say, is, stanza starts, Jew and she saw, and this is where things start to heat up in a sunburnt way.
No one cares.
Jew and she saw, and as a pretty child caressed him often. And y'all kind of worry about this, I think, when y'all read it, don't you? Stanza 69 on this, like, just a little bit further down. It says, Jew and she saw, and as a pretty child caressed him often. And it says, such a thing might be quite innocently done and harmless styled when she had 20 years and 13 he. Which I think there was a point at which it was like that. But I am not so sure I should have smiled when he was 16, Julia 23. So, like, they grow together a little bit, and then he's a little older, and he starts to develop, and he's like, oh, goodness. These few short years make wondrous alterations, particularly amongst sunburnt nations. So, this is a boy that he was 13, she was 20. You know, that's totally cool with, like, The Babysitter. And speaking of it, not Date Night, but another movie that has Steve Carell in it, Crazy Stupid Love, where that girl's the babysitter to a boy who is, like, she's, like, what, graduating senior? And she's babysitter to a boy who's, like, in 8th grade. Like, that's really not that far apart when you think. That's actually less than this. Technically speaking, had I been in high school and a senior, I could have, under the same rules, babysat my wife, because we realized that she would have been in 8th grade when I was a senior.
Wait, what?
I'm 36 and she's 31.
Oh, okay.
So we're that sort of age difference there. But I did not meet her when she was in 8th grade. No, I had to go through that whole, like, ex-wife scenario first. But, like, I met her when I was she was 20, about to turn 21, and I met her when I was 24, I think.
Wait. Okay.
So then she turned, and then I turned later, a different age. But that was when we met. She was like, I want to go drinking for my 21st birthday. And I was like, really? Because I'd already kind of been through that whole thing. And I was like, I'm done with it. Like, but she wanted to. And so we went to a bar and she ordered a drink. And the sad thing was she couldn't actually go to a liquor store on her birthday because it was a Sunday. It's terrible.
I was so pissed off when I turned 21. My aunt went to the store and bought me alcohol. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? This is the whole point of me turning 21.
And I was going to go buy a gun, too.
No.
You-
I had that at 18.
I always said, like, it's funny, like, at Church of Christ members, what we should do is, because we're very, like, strict with our, like, you know, religious stuff. When I turned 21, what I technically should have done is gone and bought a gun, bought 1 round of ammunition and a bottle of liquor, and used the 1 round of ammunition to shoot the bottle of liquor. So just to know I could do all of those things.
Wait, y'all did that?
Huh? No, I thought that it always should have been something that was done,
Okay.
but.
I was about to say, like, that's like a ritual y'all have?
But I think that most of the Church of Christ people buy a lot of rounds of ammunition and just keep them and then just never buy the liquor, which I was like, well, why? You're 21, you know, buy something. But anyways, so 16, 23, and I think at that time too, because he's gone through all this schooling, he's got all this philosophy he's been learning in the sciences, and so he seems like a little older by the education that he's had. He's been working out, he's muscular, he's developed on top of all that stuff, and he's probably, because he's having to do all this work outside to work out, he's going to be, like, well tanned in the sun. He's not going to look like a typical 16-year-old. I mean, he's what he did say, he's tall and slender too.
So he's going to look like a 16-year-old from...
He's going to look like the kind of guy you wouldn't card him because you would think he's just old enough. He's going to look like a college athlete, just because of the way he is.
The whole cast of Dawson.
And then she's 23, and she's married to a guy who, while it's said that she doesn't necessarily prefer him, but she also doesn't abhor him. So she's not that great. He's not that great of a husband. And and then he's pretty. And I just think it was one of those situations where it's like the worst having people together at the same time. I was thinking about this is insane, that based on the ways that I think high school goes now, you can do dual credit classes like at what age? Like, I mean, usually you could have an associate's degree by the end of your senior year, right? But you could, well, correct me if I'm wrong. You can finish your associates. You can finish your associates technically before you get out of high school, right? So even a public school, like somebody who is in public school can, at the age of 18, have an associate's degree, which means they need 2 more years of college, get their teaching certificate, and could become a teacher. And I know some people who graduated high school at 17. And if I graduated at 17, then got my teaching certificate by 19 years old and started teaching high school students, I might be teaching students who are 1 year younger than me.
At their oldest, and if they can come back.
Yeah. So this is a thing that can happen in our world today, and it's one of the reasons I think you see so many times stories on the news, because you have people who really aren't old enough to be teaching people, because they're still single, they're still attracted to people, they're looking for people. You know, it's like, it's really weird that you have them in the same proximity as other people. I think it's just an irresponsible thing that our society allows, because when you explain that to people, that you might have and even back then, like, you might have a 21-year-old teaching 18-year-olds. That's not a huge difference. It really just isn't.
Teachers are getting caught fucking their kids.
I mean, I had last semester was
That's
like
kind of the reason why, like,
23?
when I get my
Who was?
teaching degree,
Psych teacher
I'm just
last
gonna make
semester.
sure I'm at least 25.
Really, that's crazy. Yeah,
22, 21,
Yeah.
doctor.
it's crazy. But so the thing too is I think it's unfair to assume, or as society we should not assume, that somebody who has read a lot of books and gotten a degree is automatically wise enough to handle themselves in any situation. There should be some kind of test by which we can actually determine whether people are wise enough to handle, being, because we see it in the news all the time, don't we? We see these news of these people doing these, terrible things and taking advantage of their situations and just not really being prepared to be teachers. And I think that that's problematic. And this is a scenario too, which is way back in the day. She's married to a 50-year-old husband. I think this is worse even than what the kind of situations that we have today that make us so angry. Is that she's in a scenario where she's married to a 50-year-old husband, mostly because of a caste system. He's going to be somebody who's from a well-to-do family as well. He's very attractive. She's at home, and the guy's really old. He's not this is not like a happy life that she lives, and then she's around this boy, and he looks at her the way she looks at him. And I just think that, I don't think it's okay. I mean, again, it's like he's saying, oh no, and I'm saying the same thing, oh no. The situation was created where, oh no, ended up becoming just something that was going to happen because nobody was watching, nobody's really paying enough attention. So she went to go tell, in fact, she had a good heart about it. She went to go say, and I can't watch him anymore. Things are getting too intense. She wasn't going to say that part. She was going to say, oh, I just can't be like his tutor anymore. And it says, in stanza 76, because she was in an awkward state, she vowed she never would see Juan more, and next day paid a visit to his mother, and looked extremely at the opening door, which, by the Virgin's grace, let in another. Weird he would say, by the Virgin's grace. That's the opposite kind of way you let in another. Grateful she was, and yet a little sore. Again it opens, it can be no other. 'Tis surely Juan now. No, I'm afraid. That night the Virgin was no further prayed. Because she sees Juan and not the mother, and then she can't. And then much like Eve in Paradise Lost by Milton, she says in the very next stanza, she now determined that a virtuous woman should rather face and overcome temptation. That's the true test.
What did you just say?
It says that she now determined that a virtuous woman should rather face and overcome temptation. Don't take yourself completely away from temptation. No. Put yourself in a situation where temptation's right in front of you, and then you overcome it. That's a truly virtuous person.
That's a bad idea.
Bad idea. Yeah, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea.
Horrible idea.
Although one time I think I heard, I don't know if this is correct, but I think I heard that not the Dalai Lama. Who was the really famous monk who preached peace? It wasn't Buddha. It was
Gandhi.
Gandhi. Thank you. That Gandhi would actually sleep in the dark, naked next to, like, have like surrounded by naked women or something like that. But he wouldn't. He would resist the temptation or something. Now, I don't know if that's an old wives' tale or if that's something that he really did. But supposedly he like he tested himself. Like, but it's,
Sounds like something you say.
normal people cannot do that.
Nah, man, I was testing myself. I wasn't.
Yeah.
They've been together for like a while.
Yeah.
And then they get paired up to go to this island, and then they have people come in, and they're like specifically set to their like what they like and
Gosh.
everything.
Yeah.
And so they all have to like spend one-on-one time with them to see if they cheat on their significant other. That they
Sounds like a lovely show.
I was like, that is.
It's really messed up. That does sound bad.
I was like, what?
Let's make a show where we can just put people in a situation where they can cheat and see if they will.
Let me see. Where's the one?
Totally awesome.
When they finally get together, this is the part that I really like to do because it's so funny. It's down in stanza 115 is where it kind of starts to happen. 1753, and it's line 913. And it says, And Julia sate with Juan, half embraced and half retiring from the glowing arm, which trembled like the bosom where 'twas placed. Yet still she must have thought there was no harm, or else 'twere easy withdraw her waist. But then the situation had its charm, and then God knows what. I'm sorry, and then God knows what next. I can't go on. I'm almost sorry that I e'er begun. And then I must skip down to 117. And Julia's voice was lost, except in sighs, until too late for useful conversation. The tears were gushing from her gentle eyes. I wish, indeed, they had not had occasion, because now it's happened. And he says, this is brilliant. But who, alas, can love and then be wise? Brilliant. You know, you always think about what you should have done after the lovemaking has happened. You know, that's when people go, oh no, what have I done? That's the moment. Not that remorse did not oppose temptation. A little she strove and much repented, and whispering, I will never consent, consented. It's brilliant. I love that she says, I will never consent, and as she did so, she was consenting. So brilliant. But then the last thing I want to end on is 133, and I do apologize. This is that we're at the end now, and I should be done, but I'm not. Hold on 2 seconds. This is after this has happened. They've done it. And then 133, he gives us this really important speech. He said, man's a phenomenon, one knows not what, and wonderful beyond all wondrous measure. 'Tis pity, though, in this sublime world that pleasures a sin, and sometimes sins a pleasure. Sounds really like he's going to get to something important, right? Few mortals know what end they would be at, but whether glory, power, or love, or treasure, the path is through perplexing ways, and when the goal is gained, we die, you know, and then, and it goes to the next stanza, what then? I do not know. No more do you, and so good night. It sounds like he's always, like, just like we talked about last time, it sounds like he's moving towards some basic truth we're going to understand and says nothing.
And then he just backtracks.
And then he backtracks, and then it's all over. And I kind of think that's a great time to end. So I will say to you guys, I do not know, no more do you, and so good night. And have a great weekend.
Holy crap.
And, oh, crap.
Oh, crap. What did you do?
I think I forgot to assign the paper.
You did.
The paper assignment's on there, so I'll talk about it more on. Why don't you? It probably is a better idea for me to have you guys look at it first,
man.
and I'll talk to you more about it on
I didn't realize you had
Tuesday.
I'm sorry.
On Tuesday, I'll actually talk about the assignment after you've had y'all have had a chance to look at the assignment sheet, okay? Because I think that's a good way to approach it anyway. Just look at the critical analysis and sample formatting sheet. See y'all next time. And we'll talk about it then. Critical analysis. I think that one's always. Hey, what was that? Oh, you're just turning the mic off? Okay.